First, thank you for really keeping the energy up for us and for being such a lovely audience. I know a lot of us have been here since the morning, sitting on the other side and listening in. It's not an easy task, and I hope that what we're trying to do today, right now, keeps you engaged. And of course, thank you to my panelists for being here as well. What I want to start with is, the topic is reskilling, but I want to go back to a little bit of history. A few years ago, this was still a topic, right? We've done enough research. There's been, whether it's Microsoft, it's LinkedIn, whether it's Deloitte proprietary research, which we've been doing for years. We've been hearing that skilling is on top of the mind of the C-suite, right? Because we've seen businesses being disrupted like never before. And there's been what we call the three Ws, right? The future of work. We've seen a crazy, unprecedented amount of disruption, primarily led by a lot of technology-related aspects. And then there's the workforce itself, right? Where we have, I think through the day-to-day, a lot of people have touched upon this, about the different generations, the multi-generational workforce that we have, and how there is, while there is an organizational side shift, work side shift, there's also the workforce, which just, brings us to this whole topic of how we need to reskill, upskill, or cross-skill much faster, much better than we were doing earlier. So this is the point where we were at, right? There were a lot of trends, World Economic Forum talking about it, the fourth industrial revolution, and then comes COVID. And then we all just get propelled into this era where now we need to build all of this even faster, right? So on that note, I think the first question that I have is probably for you, Radha, is that where do you see us going from here in terms of skill building, right? So what are the top skills of the future that matter to the business today? And how do you keep them aligned constantly?
Thank you, Akshita, and really pleasure being here. This is the second time with Economic Times, and you guys do a fab job, including the anchor. Thanks for the energy. Sitting right at the back, I could literally hear all the cheers and all other speakers in the morning. But brilliant questions to start, and I think if I can take everybody back to, starting with, imagine a future, right? It's not far away when a lot of us will be driving maybe electric vehicles, right? And maybe driverless cars also. And in India, it is a dream, but who knows, it might happen. And then imagine a reality where, one of us is in one such car, you're doing your calls, your car is driving on itself. You need something on the way, you stop by and there is a store and you manage to just park yourself, your car knows what to do. You pick up what you need and your car is in a secure way also able to make a payment exchange with whether it is, a station or you're buying something, whatever, and then you continue with the rest of the day. What do you think is happening here? This is an experience, right? So everything is starting off, and I think over the last decade, we've seen that most of us as companies have started thinking about shaping experiences. And it is not about companies, it's equally schools, it's equally communities, it's equally, anywhere around you. You even look at the food apps that we use every day, right? Where is this starting from? It's starting from experience. And then what happened during the pandemic is that we all got thrown upside down in terms of how we were thinking about skills, how we were thinking about what is required for us to shape these experiences. While there's a long list of, a bunch of future skills in terms of technical, functional, we just saw from the previous presentation, the list around, the tech skills, for instance. But if you look at Maersk as an organization, we've been hugely impacted during the pandemic. And in fact, we also are part of it because we are into supply chain. So we are actually making this whole thing happen, world trade happen, and helping communities, people, etc. And the 2-3 things that emerged for us, and thankfully, these were not something that surprised us. These just became even more important. And these are not necessarily skills. These are things like scenario planning. What took us out of our gear was that nobody thought of a Suez Canal. I'm sure most of you heard about this. There were memes floating around about Suez, but we know the pain behind that. But our people had to deal with managing that situation when there was a complete clog in the world around because of the Suez Canal. So scenario planning, right? Our ability, and as an organization, the shelf life of skills is very, very short. In fact, the shelf life of organizations itself has reduced, right? The cycle of evolution is now in months at times, and sometimes up to 2 years. So as when you look at these badges, and I love people, posting on LinkedIn and saying, okay, I got this badge, I developed this skill and all of that. Unfortunately, a Gartner study itself says that whatever you acquire, if you don't apply it, if you don't have any way for using that skill, it's going to go away in days, in months. So as an organization, what do we need to provide for? If you want to start with creating that experience, if you want to look at scenario building, is to be able to have application of the skill happen dynamically. So I think the whole skills thinking has become around dynamism. And then there are elements like what will stay true to the test of time. And the two things that we look for when we hire people is curiosity and learning agility. Because we believe that you can be anywhere in Maersk. You can be an HR leader, you can be a leader sitting in front of a customer, doing a business. You could be, and today it's all about solution selling. You can't take a product straight off the shelf and go and land with the customer and say this is the value it will bring, because it will be inconsistent. How do you apply that? It's through solutions. So anybody who is with Maersk today is required to have these two things. Curiosity, and that curiosity is actually stemming from empathy, that am I able to understand my customer's needs so that then I can look at what I have and then build a solution around it. So solutions thinking, curiosity, and then this dynamism, like I said, right? It's the shelf life of people as well as skills being so limited, being able to dynamically apply. And that's where I think the culture of agile becomes, and I'm sure many of you here are part of organizations where we're practicing agile every single day. And that's what is keeping organizations alive. So these are some threads of, I know we'll discuss more, but I want to leave this with you, Akshita.
No,
this is how we're thinking.
Understood, Radha. And I think if the way I hear you say this is that there are really two categories. I mean, there are, of course, the technical skills that you're focusing on, but what has become of supreme importance is human capabilities, right? So things that are innately inbuilt, like curiosity, for example. And I also hear you say that you're using the skills as a common red thread across your talent processes. You mentioned hiring, and I'm sure it moves on from there. Very, very curious to know how you're actually building on the human capabilities side. I'll come back to that, but I'm going to bring Priya in here to understand, take this a little further, Priya, and maybe enlighten us about how we're keeping this skills framework constantly evolving, because there's one thing that we have something. But Radha mentioned, right, business disruption, skills disruption. So how do we keep it living so that then we keep telling our employees that this is what you need to build, we create the right kind of environment for them?
Yeah, thanks, Akshita. If I were to talk a little bit about how to keep that alive in terms of the skills, I think our previous presenter also talked about several tools and analytics that is available in the market today to really build a good taxonomy, a good ontology. But it is our experience that unless you garner the collective wisdom that is there within your organization on how skills are evolving and do that early on, it's not going to be of much value. Just the data, just the analytics is not going to be of much value. For example, the people who know the upcoming skills the best are your salespeople, because they are talking to customers day in and day out. They're the people who are doing business development for you. But if you are in any organizational hierarchical setup, I think you will know that the information flow from there to now, including wins and losses, it takes a long time. So I think really being able to set up a structure that garners the wisdom of your own organization and ecosystem. I know that the tools are already doing it for the external market, but for us it has been very valuable to get our own leaders, our own people to come and show us the crystal ball and say these are the skills of the future. And this we do it continuously, right? I mean, the cycle time for that has come down because of how dynamic the market is. So that's one I think, important piece of talent work that as HR people we have to do now. It is different from, when many of us started our careers, where we could really bank on a lot of industry experts to sort of come and tell us, these are your future skills, take this. It's no longer enough because your organization, your ecosystem, your customers are very unique and they expect you to respond to their needs very uniquely. So I think there is value in setting that up. And then, of course, you build a governance around it and you keep renewing it. And as you do it, I think how do you energize people around it? It is not enough if you have this list of next generation skills or premium skills or whatever name you give it in your own data bank and your employees don't know about it. To a very large extent, you have to democratize it, you have to be transparent and really build energy and aspiration around building those skills. Then you sort of, become a force, right? You gather momentum and there is sort of movement towards the skilling agenda versus just a few senior leaders sitting in a boardroom and saying, hey, this is how we must approach skilling. So make it visible, transparent to people. We publish it in our internal sort of portals to say, these are the skills that we believe we will need in the future. And hey, these are the opportunities, you have to pivot to them. So I hope I answered your question.
No, absolutely, Priya. And you kind of pivoted right into the next one as well, which is, so we have these skills which we're identifying for the future. You helped us understand how we want to govern it. But I think also one very pertinent question that we have is how to make all of this come to life for our end customer, which is the employees, right? So Jeeva, maybe I'll bring you in here. And do you want to talk to us a little about how we can, very simply, like how do we actually build skills which are almost elusive, right? Changing every few months. How are we making sure that people have the opportunity to, and not just, upskill themselves. We've been hearing the words again and again, right? Reskill, cross-skill, all of that, move people to different jobs, grow their careers. So, Jeeva.
Yeah. Thank you, Akshita. Good to see all of you, like in an offline conference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So our organization is slightly, like it's a very diverse business. So we are a offline retailer. In fact, retailer. In fact, pre-COVID, we were only focusing on physical retailing, right? So thanks to Jio, and I think Jio changed the entire digital transformation, and we were all able to work from home during lockdown. I mean, maybe Jio's penetration. But during lockdown, we also know a lot of new business emerged. And especially we moved to an omni-channel environment, not only a physical environment, we also moved to an B2C and B2B online environment. So GeoMart actually was born during lockdown. So the skills are also changing. And the skills are, of course, upskilling, cross-skilling, it's all happening. But at the same time, we are...
sorry, Jeeva, so a pivot in the business, right? From completely offline to now GeoMart, kind of what you were saying earlier, Radha.
That's right. The business also changed and evolved. And of course, we are India's largest retail talent marketplace, I would say, with more than 200,000 front-end employees. And the skills are completely changed. And it's not about only interacting with the customer. And you need to really understand different touch points, including the digital touch points, right? So again, I mean, how we are going to really democratize learning. And I think somewhere in Microsoft, we were learning there was a learning in the flow of working. And I think we had gone beyond that, learning in the flow of work and at the same time in the flow of life. So when you're having breakfast also, you need to learn, and you can learn. Today, it's possible. So during this last 3 years, I would say, 2 years, we have also moved towards democratizing learning in the flow of work and life. So we are, as I told you, so we are building a talent marketplace, whereas we build the capabilities of people, and at the same time, there is a possibility for them to move internally. As one of the talent marketplaces, not only the technology platform, platform is under production, but in the infrastructure, the environment also is important. So we have one side, there is a functional capability academies, so it focuses on building functional capabilities. The other side, organizational capabilities. When I'm talking about organizational capabilities, I think Radha beautifully talked about the future skills, right? So we have set up an Academy of Future Skills, and we have identified some 13 future skills with specific reference to retail. And when I'm talking about retail, artificial intelligence or blockchain or those technology skills. I'm not trying to build a developer in artificial intelligence. Rather, I want to create an environment in the organization whereas our employees will be able to understand the use of artificial intelligence in retail. And social intelligence. Today, people are finding it difficult to interact with strangers. So social intelligence is one of the future skills. Scenario planning, I think she talked about it. And scenario planning, design thinking, emotional intelligence, still it continues to be an evergreen skill, and that's very important. So we are we are building this capability every quarter, and there are more than 6,500 people have gone through these skills so far. And so feature skills one side, and then one more interesting stuff is leadership capability. And Reliance is known for its scalability and agility. And we want people to think future. So our Leadership Capability Academy is basically focusing on the fundamental archetypes of Reliance, and then we are continuously focusing on that. So that they could give psychological safety to our employees, at the same time they can also develop them. So there are many other capabilities which we are continuing to build so that we are future ready. And of course, the talent marketplace is going to be a game changer. And they need not to really look at outside market for any job movement. There are enough opportunities for them to move internally. In fact, in the last 7 years, I moved to 3 roles. So there are opportunities.
Wonderful. So what I heard you say, Jeeva, is obviously like the talent marketplace serves as this almost like this matchmaking platform between skills and jobs. And of course, people who have the skills and then people who need those jobs. So you're actually, and of course, within your internal diverse business group that you have pretty much a marketplace in itself. And then I also heard you say that we can create this a construct, an academy-like construct, just a structured way, a focused way, with infrastructure, with focused, dedicated attention to building certain category of skills. You also mentioned social intelligence. Radha, you'd also mentioned curiosity. These are very interesting topics. I know technical capabilities, there's been enough work. We've all been trying to build that for a very long time. But very curious to know from both of you, and maybe Jeeva, you first, is how are you actually building something like social intelligence?
Yeah, so Akshita, so we are in retail, right? So there are about 200,000, almost 300,000 people are working on our floor. So they need to interact with the customers every day. They are all strangers. They have not. Today we find comfortably in sending messages rather than picking up a call, having a conversation. So the messages are more easier for them to communicate. But when it comes to the front-end employees, they have to interact with the customers. So what are the skills required for a physical retail front-end associate? First thing is, they need to be comfortable in having a conversation, striking a conversation with the strangers. And that's where the social intelligence plays a major role, right? And the second one is, of course, they should know how to smile. And the third one, of course, they need to understand the basic, we sell electronics, we sell pharma, we sell fashion lifestyle. They need to understand the basics of the products. Products is easier to do that. So if they have social skills and emotion, social intelligence and smile, a positive attitude, and I think that's more than enough. So that's what we are trying to build a kind of culture, whereas the social intelligence is part of our curriculum, right? And then second thing is the content is very important. Content is available everywhere today, and everything is available today. So how you are democratizing content, how you are making them to be part of content development. So that's another thing, whenever we are talking about something, we ask them to create content on their own. So they are passionate about doing it. A 10 standard pass front-end associate is happy to shot a small micro reels. We call it as micro reels. It's like Instagram shorts or YouTube reels. Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. So we have something called micro reels. So they are happy to create some reels and then share it with others. So there are many things we continue to do it.
Wonderful. So you're saying you break down something as, that sounds as esoteric as social intelligence into these demonstrable behaviors, yeah. and then you go and attack that, with micro learning or different forms of learning. Interesting that you brought up content as well. I'll get to that, but I do want to get your thoughts also, Radha, on how you're building something like curiosity.
Yeah, and just want to comment on, for us it's slightly different when we look at social intelligence, and we are a company that's based in 130 countries. And it's really important for us to understand the nuances of culture which can be very different in different, countries. And then we want our talent to have a global footing, and not just like a China talent should not be limited to just being successful in China. So what we look at is when in our hiring process, we've embedded multiple rounds of conversations that can happen with a team. So it's not that I'm only meeting my managers or the talent acquisition team, but I'm also meeting sometimes even my peers. So I almost get a flavor of the day in the life of, for the role that I'm applying for. And we do a lot of meetups, we do a lot of, so it's, the candidate has experienced many things about the company, and the final decision lies then with the person. Whether the person feels that me as I am will get fully accepted and will flower and bloom in a company like Maersk, then yes, then that's the place for you to be. So it's a little different from how we do it. And then, the way we capture feedback, even the way we're writing our job descriptions, we are trying to get ourselves evaluated to see that any word that we use, are we alienating a certain type of ethnicity, nationality, a dimension that we haven't thought about, because these are all written by human beings. So that's one. But coming to your point on curiosity, it's also embedded in our hiring process, and also how we move people internally within the organization. So it's about whenever somebody is coming into a conversation, whether it is for a job, and it's always not about jobs, it's even projects, assignments, because we work agile, we are forming squads all the time. And this is where the true test of curiosity comes. Without having enough context, right? Are you able to come in and ask the right questions? The number one factor that we look for is, are people able to think and ask the right questions? They don't need to have the answers. And I can go on, but I'm also conscious of time, but I can leave you with that one thing.
No, thank you, Radha. So I'll just, summarize our discussion till now. Skills, ever evolving, common red thread across talent processes. We need to govern them, build through different constructs. Heavy influence of user-generated content today, so big impact on the way that we're designing learning, right? It's not just organizationally pushed, it's also there's a pull. We see people exchanging more and more collaborative. Clearly a lot is changing, so I think the question is, we also need to be a little introspective as people who are custodians, as talent professionals of learning in a way. How are skills evolving for us? And maybe 5 seconds, each of you, your point of view on that. Priya, should we start with you?
No, I think we have to start viewing talent and HR as a very technical field now. It is not something that you can do intuitively. So I think you need to really build the ability to appreciate your business in depth and then be able to solve for it, and then also take a people-centric and empathetic view. So to say that anybody can do HR, I think is still a little, it's going away more. And I think as HR professionals, or what I want to do is really to become, deeply skilled myself in my craft, and so that I can add value to the business and get into the depth of things. So I think building functional depth has never been, more sort of necessary for us as talent professionals.
Wonderful. Jeeva, top 3, 2, 1.
So that's right. So my strong belief is my role is helping people succeed. So why? I mean, when I'm helping them to succeed and facilitate their individual growth, they can facilitate organizational growth. That's a simple mantra, I believe. And I think as long as we continue to support our employees to succeed in their role, and I'm sure they'll be able to contribute to the organization growth. So that's a simple formula. So
wonderful.
I think it's working.
Wonderful. Radha?
Yeah, I just want to say that, be the language, right, for the business of skill and talent. They don't understand it the way we do. So being able to translate that and help them make the right choices. Only if you have the right people in the right jobs will you become successful, and helping them do that, I think that's the key role.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think, the board's telling us that the time's up as well. This was a very interesting discussion. Clearly, we wanted to keep going on and on. I just want to leave the audience also with this one last thought. I think I spent the last day, and Jeeva, I picked up from what you said, learning how to make Instagram reels. What's the one skill that you looked at building yourself? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akshita.
Thank you.